position or so, you have 2 heads or so, that makes you so important. The thing is that the society is one that you're a product of. So the major problem that I have discovered that we have in the sort of journalism that we practice is that because of the nature of the elitist ownership of the media, there's a tendency for us to always follow that narrative and to promote official sources more than normal sources. Nigerians, once things happen now, the first thing that comes to our mind is that who's the government official to talk with. Sometimes that thing we've caged ourselves to the extent that we don't even interview those people who are supposed to provide solutions. Because there's a relation between peace journalism and solutions journalism. In the sense that who are those people that we go to first when something happens to get our first source of information? Over time, by our training and then by where we've been built, we tend to go towards official sources, those in government or so. And meanwhile, if we are able to be patient enough to be able to explore other sources, I think that those other sources may be able to provide better solutions than the official sources before we eventually come to the official sources. Because things are happening around. There are killings, for example, in Southern Kaduna. The first thing we say is that we are going to police, we are going to army and all of that. But we ignore the traditional rulers, for example. Who are the custodians? Who know certain things? Who have certain privileged information that happen? Or even those who are, opinion holders, very strong people, who have certain information that we can use to, cross-check some of the opinions or some of the information that we get from government sources. And because over time we've been working within that triangular sort of news sourcing, we find ourselves in trouble. And sometimes we tend to go towards official sources of information because of the transactional nature of information that we've had over time. Because if government officials, for example, have information, they will want to send it to you. And say, come, you're the only journalist I'm giving this, or it's a privilege. So most time when things happen, we'll go to those people and get. So over time, that transactional nature of sharing information has, put us in an angle that, getting other sources of information that will help to provide solutions becomes very difficult for us to be able to explore. And that's where I want us to see if we can open our minds a little bit. That when something happens, let's not try to think how we can go to the official sources first. Are there other people who can see this thing from a different perspective? Because the thing is that if you look at our audiences, our readership, people are beginning to distrust the media. People are beginning to say, why? I've seen people who tell me that I've not watched TV in the last 1 month because you guys are regurgitating the same thing over and over. The accusation is that we are not investing more in investigative journalism, and it comes very costly. Let's be very frank with ourselves. It comes very costly. So the tendency is that they say, what Buhari is saying, or those in power, it still comes down to that official job, that our focus is more on the official sources. And so my own thinking is that if we are able to explore other newer voices, people who can give voices to, we could help to restructure our journalism so that people can have faith in the system a little bit. Because someone mentioned here that if you look at those from 40 below, they don't believe in this country any longer. I think Ogachis was the one who said that. They don't believe in this country because even with our journalists, the people we project as the solution providers happen to be those who contribute to the chaos and all of that every now and then. So people are tired of hearing from those people. So diversifying our sources of information, I think, will help us in promoting peace within our society, in promoting the believability of our stories. Because the believability of the media is waning, not because we are not doing enough, but because we are, recycling those people over and over. And unfortunately for us, some of those people or institutions that we are promoting, they don't even believe in us. They don't even believe in us because they just feel that at their own casual time, it's not journalists. Just give them one thing or just one way. And most times we've become victims where even government officials are peddling fake news. Government officials peddling fake news. They give you fake information. mentioned, because I was at an engagement where they kept on saying our journalists were we not the one who are promoting all this social media. They even said that we go on social media nowadays, we don't do research, and we just copy some things that they are saying. And I said, what of you government officials, including the Minister of Information? Sometimes he comes and gives unverified information, but sometimes as journalists, because we are too close to them, we don't even challenge them. We don't even challenge them. As being the source, look at what happened with the Naira redesign policy, for God's sake. People were being used as if they are not human beings. You and I knew that some people died because they could not have access to cash and all of that. So what happened? What's the difference? So my thinking is that if we are able to promote newer sources of information, different from the traditional sources of information, the holding of government or vested interest accountability will help us more. Let me just give us an example right now. For example, why it's important for us to be able to, in contributing to peace journalism, explore wider sources of information. How many of us have been asking or wondering why Dangote refinery, for example, hasn't taken off? Don't forget, Ibeka Chukwu, who is the former Minister of Petroleum, told us that by 2019, we won't be importing fuel again, hinging on the fact that Dangote refinery was going to come up. And 2019, before you know, they said, don't worry, 2020. And then from 2020, once they just got that COVID, they used that as, what's it called? As an excuse. And now we're in 2023, we haven't known what exactly is going on. I'm saying this because it's not only government that we should hold to account, we should even hold other vested interests. Why? Because you and I know as journalists that Nigeria invested some of our monies into that Dangote refinery. We bought certain percentage on behalf of the public. But what is happening, for example, that perennial fuel queues just happen every now and then, that you and I will suffer from it. Because it contributes to some of the chaos that we see. When certain things happen and you're unable to buy fuel and so on, and government says one thing and then you can't believe it the next day, and then you discover such a huge policy to the extent that you have Nigeria paying some monies into such a huge industrial, and nobody is even telling us whether that thing is going to come on stream or not, and then we are just going on as if nothing is happening. So my thinking is that there are lots of interests that we need to probe more. A lot of conflict entrepreneurs that are benefiting from it. And I think as journalists, one thing that has been helping us, especially the media, is that we've grown away from certain things that happen. Like when this Fulani herdsmen thing started, a lot of us initially started reporting it. From that ethno-religious angle, that this was some sort of Fulani people. And then eventually, in fact, it even started the other way around, that Islamic jihadists. And then we started saying Islamic terrorists and all of that. But over time, as we were growing with the stories right from 2009, when Boko Haram insurgency started, we came to discover that the Boko Haram phenomenon was a huge conflict enterprise for a lot of people. Christians were involved, Muslims were involved, all sort of people. And we get into certain areas where we discovered that the presumption then, for example, was that the highest number of people who were contributing to Boko Haram were actually people from maybe the Kanuris and the Fulanis in the northeast. But later on we were told that the majority of those people are even from the north central and even going to Kogi State. And I was shocked by some of those things that were happening. So my thinking is that I know that our resources are drying up daily as journalists ourselves. A lot of media houses are unable to. But my own thinking is that if we learn to give voices to new, to people that we have not been paying attention to, I think we can get more solutions as to how to resolve some of the issues that we're in. Because the thing is that most times things happen, it looks like, for example, in the conflict that's gone on in North Central Nigeria or specifics with Kaduna and Plateau State, it looks like a lot of people have exhausted the solutions. What exactly is the problem? What is the fight all about? the people in government, they will tell you that they don't know what is happening. The military, they will say they've been sending arms and all of that. They don't know what is happening. But over time, as some of our journalists have been following this and doing really investigative pieces, we have come to discover that, for example, in Nasarawa State, there's an interest in some mineral resources there that is beginning to make, people want to get access into that place. There's a mineral resource that's called California, for example, which many of us as journalists don't know so much about, but it's a very costly and precious mineral. I heard from some sources that there's a lot of mining that's going on secretly in some of the north-central states, specifically between the Nasarawa, Kaduna axis, which goes up onto Plateau, and then it even goes up onto Zamfara. Things are being done secretly, sometimes with even retired military people joining their hands, people who don't believe in the Nigerian state again, because they put their resources into helping the nation, but the nation neglected them. So they use their knowledge to actually work with some vested interests to dig out some of these things. So sometimes it will be risky for us when we explore some of those new sources of information. But what I can say is that it can help to further bring more readership, bring more audiences to us, if we're able to give voices to those people that we think do not have solutions to some of the problems that we are going through. If only we can dig deeper. My own thinking is that we'll be able to. And on the last note, before I finish, I think you were the one who raised the issues of vested interest from the Western perspective. I used to work in Reuters. I remember that when I was working in Reuters, by the time the bombs were going off and all of that, they used to buy our stories more. When you file those stories, they pay you fast and all of that. But coincidentally, when the bombs started reducing, we discovered that the interest in buying stories that were known, that didn't have any form of negativity, just reduced. You have to pitch for stories. So when you pitch, okay, there's this event that's coming, or something that's positive, you see that it waned drastically. And that's when I discovered